Singularity. I love this episode. I think that it really was. It took Amanda Tapping from strength to strength, and it took Carter from strength to strength because we already knew. I mean, she had already logged so many hours, in enemy airspace during the Persian Gulf. She had already proven herself as one of the people who had brought Stargate Command to where it was long before the movie even took off, and it was so cool to see, to finally get an episode of her that didn't deal with, an ex-fiance or deal with her necessarily, her work skills. We got to see some chinks in her armor, as it were, with exploring a relationship with a child like Cassandra, and expanding on Fraser's role as well. Terrell's great in that episode too. Tell us a little bit about Singularity.
So, first of all, that ex-fiance is one of the regrets I have. But
It was like episode 3, man. Cut yourself some slack.
No, I know. So, I mean, it's a good example. First of all, I generally have, and I think it's become increasingly more so, I have an aversion to children in jeopardy drama, and I just think it's kind of unpleasant and cheap, and I'm I put myself a little bit in that category for having done that episode. However, I guess the thinking behind it and why it was a bit of an exception was because one of the things we do, and we've talked about this a lot, is we can explore, real life, real world issues and themes without, in a science fiction, protective coding to some extent. So, there are many examples of terrorist groups using children as human shields, or
throughout history
in danger. And it just felt like that was I guess a point worth making, but also a really difficult situation. Like when you I guess the way to get through to the core of who a character is to put them in a tough situation, a moral dilemma, a choice. It's always about seeing them at their best and their worst. And I felt like we needed that moment for Carter, and there was actually quite a bit of debate in the room and in conversations with the studio and the network about whether she would actually make that choice, like to go down that elevator. Like when you think about how valuable Carter is to the Stargate program and what she means. I mean, if you were an empirical AI just doing a net benefit analysis of the situation, you'd be like, sorry, kid.
And O'Neill makes that judgment call. He says, "Get your ass back up here. This is not acceptable."
Well, yeah. I mean, look, there, like fans would say that was a early indication of his personal feelings for her. But I do think, yes, in O'Neill's estimation, it was more that he had, I think he had made the decision that it was likely a fait accompli anyways. So why lose Carter? That's a different scenario than, sending people to an almost certain death in order for there to be a small chance of survival. So, the question was Carter literally sacrificing her life in order to comfort a child during her inevitable death? And, I think deep down, Carter didn't believe that was the case. She always felt like there would be one last solution or one thing that she could do. In fact, wasn't entirely true.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that was the debate behind it, and I guess that's what I love about sci-fi storytelling is being able to put characters in those extreme situations, in which we test their moral compass and what they would do in those types of extreme situations. So I also I have a vague memory sorry, it's actually quite a vivid memory of, it's not vague at all. The director, Mario Azzopardi,
Yeah.
who is a very animated and colorful guy, and was in Brad's office. We were standing in Brad's office, and he was pitching us how he wanted her to deal with this elevator scene. And he was like demonstrating how upset he wanted Carter to get. And he threw himself against Brad's wall. And this is the vague part. I think he cracked the wall. I can't be certain. The walls in our office looked nice, but they were very flimsy. And everybody was like, what the hell's going on? And people came running, and that's just Mario. Thankfully, Amanda chose to do something slightly more subdued than that. But the spirit was right, in that we had not seen Carter go to that emotional place before.
Correct.
So I think it was an opportunity to reveal an aspect of her humanity that we hadn't seen before. And it's always nice to be able to single a character out that way.
And it continued to play out, in a couple more episodes throughout the series. And it's a great story. The Earthbound episodes that grew out of that. I mean, you bring her back in the Line of Duty, which I'd like to talk about in a couple of minutes. But later on, Rite of Passage as well. There are lasting repercussions to what the team does out in the universe that come close to home. One of them is one of them is Cassandra. So yeah. It's a great. She turns out, as a teenager, turns out to be a great foil for Carter. So there you go, and for Frasier. Thank you for watching this clip from Dial the Gate. If you enjoyed the video, please consider giving us a thumbs up with that like button. It will encourage the algorithm to show this to other Stargate fans. Also, please consider sending this to a fellow Stargate friend. I also want to invite you to subscribe to future episodes right here on YouTube. We are a live show, so changes are likely to happen all the time. And if you plan on joining us live, you'll want to be the first to know. Be sure to visit dialthegate.com for the complete guest schedule, so you'll know when to join us and ask your very own questions to our guests. See you on the other side.